I mean, you can unmute your mic if you want, but I thought we would probably use the chat function. So if you're able to bring that up so it sits at the side of your screen, if you have any questions at all, please let me know. Now, there's also something called a little reaction. And I don't know if you have access to those. There's a way that you can do a little wave. So if there's anything where you want me to stop, you can also use that as well. And I'll try not to miss it, okay? And, oh, we're just bringing someone else in. Okay, so I probably don't know you, but my name is Liz Skorski. I'm a full-time web designer, and I've been doing web design and development since 2004. I've personally built well over 500 websites now. I have been responsible for building e-commerce sites supporting $120,000 US per month, which still operates today. I have been on and off doing e-commerce right from the beginning when we used to use little PayPal buttons and buy now buttons without the advantage that we have today of a lot of the platforms, the big robust carts. So we're going to talk about some of that. And in terms of the introduction, I mean, why do people want e-commerce? I mean, right now we're looking at adapting to the new normal. A lot of people are calling and saying, hey, you know what, we need to monetize in a different way. E-commerce does save quite a bit of time, and it helps you prepare for the future. It can act as a secondary or passive income stream to a business that you're already doing, and it can really help simplify the sales process. It cuts the overhead of bricks and mortar. I have recently implemented quite a few, I wouldn't say quite a few, I've recently implemented something for a farm store that's been super successful, and it actually ended up saving them a ton of time. They had a lot more time by automating the sales process to now devote to production. So it really saw their sales increase quite a bit. So for discussion today, we're going to talk about the concept. So 15 things that you need to think about before you start your store. We're going to talk about the mechanism. So that's the actual tool that facilitates how you build your store. It facilitates the actual sales process. We're going to talk a little bit about metrics and marketing. Those two we're not going to focus on too much. It's a huge topic, e-commerce, but I hope to give you some basics to think about. So the first thing that's really important, like my number one rule, is determine what you need to make your business a success before you decide on the e-commerce platform. And the reason I say this is you don't want to get sold. There is a lot of companies right now, oh, we're fast, we're easy. And some of them are fantastic. We're going to go over a couple. But there are some inherent problems with some of the platforms. So you just want to make sure you don't get stuck in something that isn't going to grow with your business. So my number one, again, we want to plan, plan, plan. Planning saves you a ton of time, and it saves some mistakes. We want to think beyond today and imagine what your business, you know, what happens if it takes off? What's going to happen? Does the platform that you're considering, is it going to grow with you, and will you have problems later? So I'm going to talk a little bit now about the 15 things you need to consider. These are fairly basic things, but again, if you just write down even the top part, the top question, that you can think about it later. So the first thing is, what do you want to monetize or sell? What is your product or your service, or is it virtual? Right now, we are able on most platforms to sell lessons and training and videos and ebooks and all kinds of things. So think about what it is you want to sell, and think about what you may want to sell in the future, because your model may change. Or is it a combination of product, service, and virtual download? We also want to discuss the pricing levels. Do you want to sell retail or wholesale? If you want to look at wholesale, how many levels of wholesale will you need? Then we want to talk about, does the product or service that you sell, in this case, let's say it's a product, does it have any special attributes? So size, color, design, flavor. When they're purchasing something, do they have packaging options, quantities, let's say? So I can buy a bag of potatoes at 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds. Those are called attributes. Same with t-shirts. You're selling t-shirts. What color, what size? You need to figure that part out, as well as customization options. When I purchase the product from you, do I need to be able to put in my name and have it personalized or customized on the product? Do I need to have an image upload or add my birth date, let's say? So it's all about figuring in advance, when a consumer buys your products, what do they need to tell you, because the mechanism that you're using has to be able to record that information. So if I'm buying a t-shirt, very simply, your mechanism, which is your e-commerce platform, needs to record, okay, what size of t-shirt, what color of t-shirt, and anything special about the t-shirt. We also have to get down to determining, how to categorize your products. And this is a big one. This takes a lot of thought. You can have one product in multiple categories. But if it's very specific, we have to think of the user experience on the front end. What happens if I need to get very specific in my search? Maybe I'm going to categorize it into sub-levels, which is fine. So we may have t-shirts, we have long sleeve, we have short sleeve, we have thermal t-shirts. I mean, those are different categories, right? You can get into more complex structures where we need to now get really specific and have we need to have special search functions where I can say, show me all the blue t-shirts. So again, it's just thinking about what you want your store to look like and outlining that in advance. I mean, if it's simple, that's good. It's easier for you to build, but sometimes some products need more. The next thing is when a customer checks out, do you need any specific information other than the standard, name, address, phone number? The next thing we want to consider is, where will you sell? Certain platforms don't allow you to sell worldwide. Most do, but there are some limitations on certain platforms. So with these things comes certain taxation issues. So again, are you going to be charging HST? What happens if you sell across Canada? Are you going to charge the provincial rates? Normally what we do is, if you say you're going to sell in Canada, we charge the provincial rates based on the province that the person lives in. And if you're selling to the US, there's certain thresholds that if you go beyond, you'll be responsible for US taxation as well. And if you have sales agents, you will also have to look at getting nexus in a state. So for instance, if you're in New York, you have a sales agent in New York who's selling for you, you have to apply for a nexus, and that's a whole different tax structure that we have to address. And then we look at, some products are tax exempt. So again, when you look at your total, when you're planning out your store, are any of the products tax exempt? And they may be food items, or they may be medical aid items, or I believe some books. And if you have a variety of things, we'll have to mark some things as not taxable. So again, this is all part of the planning. And then you need to consider, how am I going to ship this? If it's a physical product, how am I going to ship it? Am I going to do a pickup? I'm going to do Canada Post, UPS, FedEx, Purolator. How is it going to get there? And then we need to inform the customer of who the carrier is and roughly how long it's going to take. If you use multiple carriers, it gets a little more complex. If you say Canada Post, that's relatively, easy to do, but then we now have to look at the shipping costs. So are we going to offer free shipping, which everybody wants? I mean, we're spoiled. We like, everybody likes to see, get this for free and, don't pay here, but the cost is real. So it has to be absorbed somewhere. So before you say, oh, it'll be free shipping, you need to really assess how much is my carrier charging me. It could be table-based shipping, which what I mean by that is you could say, okay, if somebody spends between $0 and $50, the shipping rate is this. Or if they're going to Ontario, the shipping cost is this. But if they're going to BC, it's a different amount. So you could also do percentage-based shipping. And that is where you say, okay, I'm assigning 3% shipping. And again, you'll have to run the numbers. Some of these like flat rate percentage-based and free shipping, they're all pretty standard on all platforms. When you get into the table-based shipping and actual integrated shipping mechanisms, they cost a little bit more. There's going to be a cost for integration. So these are things to think about ahead of time, because shipping costs, for instance, is a touch point. And what I mean by that is when you get to the cart, so you've decided to look at this item and you think, oh, this is great. You're at the cart, you're ready to buy, but now the shipping cost shows up. Oh, well, it's an extra $15. And then tax shows up, and that's an extra 13%. And this is where we see a lot of cart abandonment, where people just say, no, I'm leaving now, this is too much, because they see the total, right? So shipping costs, again, in my experience, is one of the most difficult things to figure out. I think with most new businesses, you start one place and you end up somewhere else, because you have to analyze your numbers and you think, okay, am I losing money on shipping? Flat rate, I like, it's easy to implement, and it's straightforward. So if you can work your numbers so that you add part of your shipping cost to your product price and then do a flat rate like $5 or $10, depending on what it is, that is easier for the consumer to absorb. So we say, okay, oh, it's only $5. Okay, it's, I can't complain. But it's a touch point, and it really has to be thought out what you think is going to work for your clients. And it totally depends on the weight of your product. Lighter weight things obviously are cheaper to ship. So for you to absorb the shipping cost in your pricing is much easier. And it's something that takes a bit of conversation and some planning and really looking at the numbers. So the other thing to consider on the shipping point is if you have a valuable item, do you need tracking? So if the item that you sell on your store is $300, let's say, can you afford for that to go missing? And if we add tracking, that ups the shipping costs. So it's sort of looking at what options that you have and explaining to the customer in advance, why the shipping is a certain price. You put that in your policies, and give them maybe some different options. Okay. So then what we want to talk about is the pricing structure. So again, this is another touch point, is what I call pricing. Online is different than your traditional retail sales. People, I think, mentally think that, oh, I'm going to shop online, it's cheaper. It isn't necessarily, because the costs are very real. They're just different than a bricks and mortar type situation. So you've got your cost of the product, whatever that may be, plus your usual markup, which is supposed to be your profit. Then you've got your payment transaction fees, and we'll talk about that a bit, but that is the amount that you get charged to process the credit cards online, which is significantly higher than, for instance, a face-to-face transaction with a Visa or MasterCard. The cost of running your website, whether that your fixed cost of either a monthly fee or just having your hosting and your SSL certificate and all that thing. So the cost of running the website needs to be taken into consideration. Also, that markup I talked about is if you want to add a portion of your shipping to the price of the product, you have to consider that. If we add that, it lessens the shopping cart shock. And So we're adding a portion of our shipping to the price to offset that shock at the end when we go to check out. So now we can offer a cheaper shipping rate at the end. You also have to consider if you're doing drop shipping or warehousing. If there's any costs involved there, it's got to be absorbed into the product. Then the actual cost of packaging your item in, whether it be a padded envelope or a box, whether there's stuffing around it, that has an actual cost too. So you have to figure that into your price, and the time that it takes you to do that and package it up and take it to your shipping outlet. So again, there is very real costs involved. It's not just as simple as, oh, I'm going to sell this. You just have to figure out where your pricing fits in, and definitely look at your competitors. If they're a very large competitor, you may not be able to compete, but doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, because if your product is unique or special, you know, it's definitely worth doing. Then another thing we need to look at is inventory management. So as you develop your new online store, do you have to know what inventory is still available? So if you know, if you're buying your inventory, if you're buying your stock and then reselling, or you're making something, is it important to know for you how many things are left? So for instance, if you have there's different levels of inventory we can have. We can have one where we just simply say, oh, it's out of stock, and you manually mark it out of stock. It's more work for you. Or we have the automated version of inventory management where it's just, okay, here's red t-shirts and I'm out of them, but it's not taking into consideration the different variations. So inventory management you can drill down to be very specific, and it's usually available on most platforms. If you also have a bricks and mortar, does this inventory management have to integrate with your point of sale system? So again, things to think about. If you know you can always get your product for wherever you get it, or you're making it yourself and you can make more, then maybe you don't need inventory management, and that simplifies your store setup. You can certainly add some of these things later, but keep in mind, if you don't plan for it, the issue we have is if you have 100 items in the store already, and then you're saying, oh, now I need to add inventory management, you're going to have to go in and edit all 100 items. Okay. So the next thing we want to talk about is couponing. Again, adding coupons or sales incentives. It's a great way to get people interested in your store. And it's a great way, for instance, social media, buy one, get one free, or 50% off. I mean, if you want to be a price motivated, if you want your buyer to be price motivated and you can offer a cheaper price, then couponing is great. Or if you have an established client base and you want to reward your clients, couponing is wonderful. There's a lot of different structures you can have, but you need to know in advance, do I need to have the ability to add coupons? And then you need to look at how complex of a coupon structure do you need. So most platforms automatically have something that's are percentage-based coupons, where you get 10% off or you get 20%, whatever you want to make it. A lot of them also allow you to add $10 off or $20 off. Most of those are pretty standard, but when you get into something more complex, like buy one, get one 50% off, you will have to upgrade your couponing either app or plugin, depending on the platform you're using. It's just, again, things to consider before you build your store. Now, the next thing is we need to consider policies, because we need to give the consumer, the viewer, the information they need to make a purchase decision. And part of that is, what are my rights as a consumer if I don't like this product? Can I return it? So your policy page should have a return policy. Now it's your store, so you can decide whether you allow returns or not. Some people absolutely don't, and that's fine, as long as you state it, okay? What is the defective product policy? What if I if it just is broken, is there any caveat for that? Again, just state what your policy is. There's not really a right or wrong here, as long as you're being transparent and telling the audience. Then you need a privacy policy. You need to explain to people what you do with the information that you collect from them. So a standard privacy policy would say, you know, we collect your name and address and email, hold it on file in our customer database. We do not, you know, sell it or share it with others. You know, we're responsible with your personal information, and it will be deleted after, let's say, 2 years. Something like that. Again, you can modify it, but you do need to be responsible and tell people what the privacy policy is. Some people actually share client information with other people. And again, I'm not a fan of that, but if you do that, you have to tell them, okay? You also need to have a security policy. And this is more about how is your personal information, but more importantly, your credit card information. Like, is it stored on your site? How is it encrypted? And if you're doing it yourself, you'll have to find that information out. If you're doing it with a web professional, they'll be able to help you with that statement and explain exactly what the security policy is in relation to your site. Most sites that we do, the credit card information is not stored on the site because to do so, you would need to have a PCI compliant web host. So anyways, that's, again, you just need to make a statement about the security. Then the next is terms and conditions. And you think, oh, well, what's that? Don't we already have all this stuff? But no, if there is a disclaimer you need to put in there, you want to have it in your terms and conditions. So for instance, on a recent site I did, it was for a protective face shield, for example, and part of our terms and conditions were to say that you understand this is not a medical grade face shield. When they purchased, there's a little check mark at the end that says, I agree to the terms and conditions. That's a way to cover yourself from any liability. Again, we're being transparent. Everything is listed out on your policies page, but it gives you an opportunity to cover yourself in case anybody comes back and said, oh, but I thought it was, you know, I could use this item here, there, somewhere else. So terms and conditions are important, and that's sort of the way to cover yourself. The next is the payment processor. You should disclose how the credit cards are being paid and what credit cards are accepted. Along with that, saying who you use. It's just transparency, because their information is going from your website to someone else. Then we want to talk about the shipping policy. And again, what are the recourse? What if I don't receive the package? What do I do? And this is where you would disclose how long it takes for the package to arrive, roughly. This is also where you would put something about, you know, during the COVID-19 crisis, shipping could be delayed. So again, this policy page is important. It's part of the transparency. I personally, when I go to a new, when I go to buy something online, which I do from time to time, and I'm not familiar with them, I do go check the policy page because I want to know as a consumer, what rights do I have? What if I don't get the package? Are they just going to say, forget it, you're on your own? Or is there an email or phone number to call so that we can help, you know, remedy the situation? So as you can see, there's lots to consider. We're almost done. In terms of descriptions of your products, when you're planning your store, this is really important. We need to give someone who's on your site the power to make a buying decision. So we need to grab the viewer. We need to get them excited about your product or service. We need to empower them to make the purchasing decision. So give them enough information. So we want to do this with original, detailed descriptions. And I say original because if you copy a description, let's say from your supplier, and you put it on your website. So this is a, you know, description of this, let's say it's a mastectomy bra, and you copy it over from a different platform, you know, your supplier, and you put it on there. The problem is that Google looks at that as a duplicate content infringement. Now, If you only do it once or twice, it's probably not a big deal. But if you do it all the time, then that could be an issue. You need to give people enough information to feel it in their, in their mind. You need to use some marketing language so that they kind of understand, oh, and it, this, adjectives really to describe this product, to make them think how this is going to fit into their lifestyle or for the purpose that a tool is meant to be used, that type of thing. So again, the descriptions are super important. It needs to be original content, super descriptive. I think longer is better because any words that you use, that helps with SEO. And you want to convert that person to a purchaser, okay? The higher price the item, I feel the descriptions need to be more detailed. Size, shape, weight, etc. Everything needs to be there. Then we move on to photos. So take your photos. I put a little example here you can see of a product box, and these are super cheap. So if you have a physical product, it's a great way to just set it up. You can take pictures with your iPhone because honestly, the web resolution is quite low. Most shopping carts will accept a nice square picture. So if you're taking pictures, try to get an app for your phone that will make a square so you don't have to resize it in a graphics program. Try to get good lighting on it. I do recommend to do it on white. It looks super clean. You don't have to. If you have a consistent background, then that is fine. Also include lifestyle shots, so the product in use, or again, if it's a service, like if there's a product, a picture that we can use that depicts the service. So if it's a carpet cleaner and they're implementing online service, well then get a picture of someone cleaning a carpet. The square configuration is, as I mentioned, quite acceptable for most platforms. And make sure the pictures are the same size. Usually when I'm doing it, I say the picture should be no more than 800 pixels by 800 pixels. You could go bigger. I wouldn't go too much bigger. And you have to consider the loading time of pictures. So if you had 100 items in a shopping cart and every picture is 2 meg because you took it off your phone and didn't resize it, the problem is it's going to take absolutely forever to load. And we need a nice fast website. So that gets a little more specific. And again, it depends on the platform and whether you've put anything in place to help do the resizing for you. Oh, and also I mentioned different angles. So if you're selling a physical product, show me the back, the front, the side, different angles of it, because it helps me, the viewer, make a good buying decision. And the final thing I want to talk about is a little more complex. I want to talk about the flow. So when you're planning your e-commerce site, is there any special flow required? Now, the normal e-commerce site, you go to the cart, you find your item, you add to the cart, you can go add more items, you go back. But there are certain situations, like when you have a digital download and I say, okay, I'm going to buy an ebook. When I purchase, then the flow of the website needs to change because it can't stop there. Otherwise, the customer, I don't get that virtual download. So what needs to happen now is the customer needs to land on a thank you page, basically, that says, this is what's going to happen. You need to reassure the customer. So I've purchased, it was successful. It comes back to a landing page that said, check your email, you're going to get a special code so you can download your item. And we need to look at that flow ahead of time and make sure the platform you choose can accept this type of system. Another is that, let's say I purchase vegetables from a farmer for pickup on a specific date and time. Am I going to get any specific instructions in the thank you email with my receipt that says exactly when I come and pick it up? There's a lot of different flows that can happen. I've done websites where we've had somebody successfully purchase and then they land back on, so let's say a membership site. So I've done a purchase and then I land back on a page that brings me to a profile, which I have to now fill out. That goes into the system. So, I mean, e-commerce, again, that's the mechanism that does the sale, but there's so many different applications. So if you really start to think outside the box, there's a lot of fun things you can do with it. Okay, so now we want to talk about the mechanism. So we've got some things to consider. Now we want to talk about, now that you've got your good idea, what's the best platform for your store? Okay, so I'm going to take a look at 3. Now, I only use one of them. I've tested the other 2. I have talked to representatives, and I'm trying to be very fair in terms of the pros and the cons. So I want to take a look at WooCommerce, Local-Line, and Shopify. And they each have different nuances and good stuff and bad stuff. So let's look at WooCommerce. That is a plugin for WordPress, and it integrates with the WordPress website. The WordPress website is a full content management system. WooCommerce itself is the plugin piece that allows the function of e-commerce to happen. It's very customizable and expandable. It's tons of built-in features, and you have full ownership over the site. Now, the biggest plus on this, is if you have an existing WordPress site and you want to now add e-commerce, you don't want to go to a third party. You want to keep it within the existing site because that's really going to help with your SEO. The other platform I want to talk about is Local-Line, and that is a fairly local company actually. It's a do-it-yourself e-commerce platform. It does have a monthly fee. It's specifically built for farmers, food hubs, and markets. Okay, it has fairly limited templates, but it has very good features specific to the food industry. It is secondary to a full website, so if you already have one, this is sort of an extra piece. So you go from your website, you have to link out to Local-Line for people to purchase. And this one acts as a customer management system, so it has some different emailing features. Then I want to talk about Shopify, which is huge. It is very popular. They've got a very aggressive marketing campaign. This is a do-it-yourself platform. There is a monthly fee. There is lots of template options, lots of built-in features already, but it is secondary to your existing website. So when you look at, let's say you have your company and we have a corporate website, now I would be going elsewhere to do my shopping. You can actually bring parts of it in, but it is 2 separate systems. Shopify has very easy onboarding. Okay, we're going to look into this in a little more detail. So when we think about your business in general, we want to know when you're adding this type of function, we would hope that it has a value at some point. So we want to know who owns the platform. Can you move it? Do you have complete control? What are my customization options? And what are the long-term implications? And we can talk a little bit more about that. In a small business, it may not be as important for ownership, but as your business grows or if your store becomes very popular, you do need to look at the implications of not necessarily having full control over it because there's certain things you can and cannot do. So let's look at this again and compare. So when we look at these 3 platforms and we look at the setup, so with WooCommerce, it is a do-it-yourself and there's a lot of information, but a lot of people do need a web professional for initial setup. We look at Local-Line, that's completely do-it-yourself, and Shopify is do-it-yourself as well. There are some agencies that will help you, but honestly, the onboarding is super simple. Ownership with WooCommerce, you own it. It's an open source platform, and what that means is it's the coding is open source. So when you put it on your WordPress website, like, you own this thing. This is yours. Local Line is proprietary, and so is Shopify. So they're their own separate platforms. They are sort of a big shared hosting platform. You don't own the coding to it. You have access to it because you have an account. Then we look at, are these platforms movable? So in WooCommerce, yes, you can move it. So for instance, if you're hosting with GoDaddy and you decide, I don't want to host with them anymore, I'm going to go over here, or I need, maybe you're big now and you need your own server, absolutely movable. With Local Line, it is not movable, and with Shopify, it is not movable. We look at customization. So WooCommerce is fully customizable. You will need probably a web professional to help you with that. It's extremely expandable, and the options are huge, but it is not necessarily a fully do-it-yourself platform. Once it's set up, you absolutely can edit it. So you can edit your products, you can edit your pricing, you can add new categories, and all of that can be taught very, very easily. With Local Line, customization is a no-no. They are very specific though. So in all fairness, they built specifically for the food market, farm market, and it is a good platform. It has everything that you need, and it has some actually really good bonus things that I'll tell you about specifically for that market. Editable as in editing the products, yes, for sure. You can edit the products, the pictures, you know, stock, that type of thing, descriptions, that's all editable. Same with Shopify. Customization is available, it is limited. What I mean by that is Shopify, it's proprietary. It's quite a large company now, but it's developed its own sort of programming language, if you will, called Liquid. So things like themes, there's extra themes available, but you have to purchase them, which is fine. But not everybody can edit it, and you do not have access to the code. The products themselves, absolutely editable. Categories, oops, sorry. So yeah, Shopify is very editable in terms of the products themselves. Then we look at integration into an existing website. With WooCommerce, yes, because it's part of the WordPress platform. So that is fully integrated to a WordPress site. Now, if you don't have a WordPress site, you can't use it, okay? Local Line, you can't integrate it, but well, you can through an embed code, but it is a separate platform. Same with Shopify. It's not integrated, but it is with an embed code. It's not truly ever living on your website, but you can embed it so it looks like it is. Then we're going to look at stock management. So WooCommerce, absolutely. Stock management is actually native to WooCommerce, so it's already implemented in the base free product. Local Line, they do offer it with an extra cost, and Shopify does have it as well, native with most packages. Product variations, that would be like your t-shirt with the size and the color. WooCommerce, yes, and that's already integrated into the base product. Local Line, no. So the difference there is, because it's built for the farm market, each thing has to be separate, okay? So if you can't really have any variations on things, you have to add separately. And Shopify, yes, absolutely, they do have product variations. Then we talk about payment processors. So again, because Local Line and Shopify are proprietary, you have not a ton of option here. Shopify, we'll start with them. They have their own Shopify payments platform, and it actually runs through Stripe. So I believe it also goes with PayPal, and that one is included, which is good. I mean, those are good options. But if you wanted to use your own, let's say you had your own merchant's account through Cygate, which is a common one, they will charge you 2% more to enable that integration. So they charge you a little bit more if you don't use the Shopify payments. Local Line, you have one option only, and you just use whatever they use, which I think, I think it's Stripe. And in terms of WooCommerce, out of the box, it does support PayPal, and Stripe has come on board. Square, it's a simple little add-on, it's all free. Cygate, yes, you have tons of options here. Now, sometimes to get the integration to work, you have to pay for an extra plugin, but it is a lot of, really, you can do it easily. You may need a programmer to help you. Then we look at extra functions. So you can do pretty much anything with WooCommerce. I mean, it's not all free. Some is, some isn't. But you can get very specific into custom stuff, which you cannot do with the other two platforms. And this comes into play when you want custom reporting, very specific stuff. You want to change default wording. You want multi-level wholesale platforms, quoting systems, advanced search functions. So you get full options. With Local-Line, you have some options. Again, these things are, you have to add on, you have to pay for them. Same with Shopify. They have actually a fairly good suite of apps that you can add on. Some are free and some are purchased. So extra functions, again, if you're just a straight retail, nothing different, I mean, you've got some good options with WooCommerce and Shopify. Then we need to look at the cost. So cost is funny. I think WooCommerce is going to be a little front-end loaded. So what I mean by that, if you're probably going to pay a developer or a designer to set that up for you, a simple store does not cost much money to set up. You know, $300 and you're done. And there's no monthly fees after that because you're already paying for your hosting for your website. And you've probably already got an SSL. You will pay for extra add-ons. For Local-Line, you're paying between $19 and $90 a month, and that's forever. It is a fully hosted platform, so you don't have extra hosting fees. And again, this is specific to the food industry. And it just really depends if that works for you. And it depends on the features that you require. Shopify, you're paying $29 a month up to $299, plus the cost of any extra themes, like if you want anything specific, and any additional add-ons. So this is where I say I think WooCommerce is a little front-end loaded, but there is no, you may pay more to get set up, but you get it set up once and you're done. So it just depends on what you need. I just want to go back for a second to payment processors. I just want to talk about that quick because the cost you would expect to pay on online sale is 2.9% plus a 30-cent transaction fee. That is pretty standard with most payment processors. So again, when we were talking back about pricing, remember that that's a hunk that's coming off of your sale price. It's much higher than an in-person. So if you're used to bricks and mortar and a POS system there, that rate's going to be quite a bit lower than what you're going to get online because there's increased risks and the credit card is not available. So then I tried to summarize some of the pros and some of the cons. And again, I tried to be fairly, realistic about this. So some of the pros, again, in the WooCommerce setup is it offers complete customization and control, and you own it. It integrates beautifully with your current WordPress website, which is important for SEO because your pool of information is all in one spot. WordPress has a huge online community. The themes and the plugins are endless. There's tons of them. And, you don't have a hard time getting support for that. WooCommerce is quite actually simple to set up in WordPress once you know how to do it. And the WooCommerce plugin is free. Some of the cons on WooCommerce, there could be a little bit of a learning curve, but it is easily taught. And, it's worth knowing how to do it. And, your designer should empower you to know how to make the changes. Now, there is also a lot of documentation excuse me. So if you want to try to do it yourself, you absolutely can. And in fact, if you look up WooCommerce and setup, it will start to explain how to do it step by step. So it can be done yourself. It could be more expensive overall. I mean, if you're looking for a cheap option, if it's a base store, it will be inexpensive. If you're into complex stuff, it's not necessarily cheap, but it is very functional, okay? And part of a con is you do have to manage everything. So as a business owner, you probably will have a designer or developer manage everything from your hosting to the security, the maintenance, and the backups. Again, very easy to implement if you know what you're doing. A little more complex if it's a complete do-it-yourself situation. Then we're going to look at the Shopify. And the pros of that, you know, the onboarding is so easy with Shopify. It's basically a product they built to get you set up. Step 1, step 2, and it's pretty simple. You know exactly what you're going to be paying every month, which is a big plus, and you don't have that, you know, that upfront fee, a couple $100 or $1,000 to get your store started with WooCommerce. You're going to be spreading out your payments. There are access to thousands of apps to extend your store. The themes are quite plentiful, but you do need to pay for them. Shopify handles everything from the hosting to security, but again, that's a pro and a con. It's wonderful that they do that, but you also have no control. It takes a few minutes to launch your store, and they say that the support is excellent. So there is, you know, people that you can call. Some of the cons, again, you don't have control. And to remember that this is not a platform that's going to help your business get found necessarily, like it is not a marketplace. It's simply a tool to facilitate sales. It is proprietary. The customization is better on other platforms, and you're stuck with the monthly payments going forward forever. And it's only going to get a little bit higher as your store grows. Then I want to look at the local line pros. It's very easy to use it. It has excellent advanced inventory control. Now you do have to pay for it, but I just want to give a quick example in case there's anybody in the ag industry. In terms of inventory control, if you had product like vegetables and you have 100 pounds of potatoes, you can actually sell in 5-pound, 10-pound bags, and it will deplete your total stock. So the interesting thing there's no other platforms that can do that. And again, this was made specifically for the food industry. So that's actually a really big plus. It's a different way of looking at inventory, but it's like if you have a gross stock, but you're reducing it by sort of poundage or little different bits, weight, let's say, it's really going to help. Also, it helps you manage the fulfillment process with pick lists and delivery routing, and that was really cool. It actually has a map in there. So if I'm a farmer and I've sold to 17 different restaurants, it takes those orders and it shows me the route to take. So that was really cool. It also has invoicing and payments, and there is supplier management available. So that's kind of neat. And the cons for Local Line, again, it's a proprietary platform. There's not a lot of control or customization. You are tied into your monthly fee. You don't have any control over the look of the site. It is a platform that's pre-done, so it looks how it looks. And you can't have any retail and wholesale pricing on the same product, which was kind of weird. What they want you to do is make a separate catalog. So if you have retail products, that's one catalog, so essentially a different store, and then you also have a wholesale one, which is a different store, where with the other two platforms, you could actually log in, and depending on your user level, you get different pricing. So just a different way of integration. So again, this is a huge topic. The one thing I want to talk about quickly is key metrics. So it's really, really important to know that the platform itself is not going to market your business. Your web traffic, getting web traffic is essential for the success of your store. So the average conversion rate on an e-commerce store is 1 to 3%. So it's going to take 1,000 visitors to make 20 sales. And it is so important. Don't forget the numbers. You need Google Analytics or something like that to help you see how many people are actually coming to the store. Because if you only get one sale, I don't want you to get depressed, because it's simply a matter that you're not playing the numbers. You need to determine how many people have come so you can estimate what your conversion rate is. If you have an established client base already, and now you're converting to online, you're going to find that your conversion rate, so your sales rate, is much higher. It's really the way that people should incorporate e-commerce. Is you have an established website, you have web traffic, it's interesting, they like your product, excuse me, and now you add on e-commerce as a component. Now people, like, they're already interested in you. So your conversion rate is going to be quite a bit higher. We recently did a site for a new online business, and it launched during the COVID-19 now. Excuse me. And they're actually, because it's a timely product, and they're doing some marketing on social media and personal calling and so forth, their conversion rate is about 11%. So it's much higher than the average sort of 2%. And that's due to the fact that it's a timely product and they are pushing the marketing on that. So if you have a sales team and they are pushing your product, they're making connections, and they're pushing people to the website, you're going to find your conversion rate is quite a bit higher. So again, with an average retail product, it's better if you have some brand recognition ahead of time. Excuse me. And we want to push people to the e-commerce that you've created so that we can facilitate the sales. But you've got to keep in mind those numbers. And then we want to talk, we're almost done. We want to talk about marketing, which is that never ends with an e-commerce store. We have to drive that traffic. To be blunt, a lot of people get sold a website, think, oh, I'm going to just make a Shopify site, or I'm going to make this site or that site, and they just wait for the sales. And it's very unrealistic way to run the business. If you're serious about it, you've got to have a plan. You've got to develop a marketing plan to drive traffic. So whether that's using social media, video, geo-target, retargeting, there's a lot of different ways to do it. So build an effective marketing plan to get constant exposure, okay? Excuse me. So the tips I have really is to optimize your site for SEO, which is going to, if you do really good descriptions on your products and services, that's going to help quite a bit. And blog, get on social media, do videos. There's a lot of marketing opportunity there. So when you think of e-commerce, don't ignore the marketing aspect of it. And that wraps it up. And there's a ton of information, but I am open to any questions that you have. And if you want to unmute your microphone, no problem, and we can chat, or you can do it through the chat box. Any questions? Whoops, you just saw my dog there, sorry.
Oh, hi, my name's Kate. Yeah, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So firstly, thank you very much. That was really informative. I had two questions, actually. It's a bit cheeky. You mentioned that there's one that you use consistently. I'm guessing that's Shopify.
Sorry, which one do I use?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, I use WooCommerce.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, I develop I'm a WordPress developer, and we use WooCommerce because we do a lot of really customized stuff.
Okay, gotcha. And then the other question is, I have a prospect who produces jams and preserves and products like that. She does mainly wholesale. So would you say, out of those 3 platforms, but she may now need to move to more retail because of the current situation.
Yeah.
As a snapshot, would you say that, I'm sorry, I forget the name of it, the food producing platform, would you say that's still the best choice for her, or?
You know, if she's not doing delivery, like, would she be doing deliveries, or mostly
not in the way you described? No.
Okay. To be honest, I mean, my preference has always been WooCommerce, because I am a little biased because of ownership. To me, ownership is huge. I've seen a lot of companies lose control. If it's a product that she produces, and if there's ever a chance that she'll sell the business, I think it's better to have an independent website, depending on her costing. So if she has $0 for setup, like, WooCommerce isn't necessarily cheaper. So it's a little front end loaded, because usually it requires a developer to get you started. But once you're established, and we're not talking thousands of dollars, it just depends what her current website is like and all that stuff. If she has $0 to start, yes, you could go the Shopify route. I mean, Shopify is an excellent platform. Like, it really is. It's just, I get hung up a little bit on that ownership piece. If you look at what stores are doing online, 3.8 million e-commerce stores are run by WooCommerce. About 800,000 are run by Shopify.
Wow.
So there's, and I mean, it's, the tough part is it's evening out a little bit, but again, I'm hung up on the ownership piece, because I tend to deal with companies that, you know, they're doing larger volume business and they can't risk running it through a third party. They need complete control over coding and everything, and security. So yeah, little pros and cons there.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful.
Any other questions? Okay, well, I think we're just on the hour, so I think if there's no more questions, we'll close that up. And if you have anything that you think of later or need help in the planning process, by all means, reach out. My email address is there. I'm happy to have a consultation. Okay, sorry, you said there's a question here. To me, it seems that if you're planning on being in business longer than a year, WooCommerce is better. Yeah, again, I'm trying not to be biased. I like WooCommerce better as a platform. In general, it has a lot of longevity, been around a long time, and there's a lot of support. Again, usually the setup is done with the developer the first time, but then going forward, you as the owner are empowered. Like, you're going to have the same ability to change stock if you need to, change pricing, add products, add categories. Just depends where you are in your business. I mean, I think as a startup, people are very attracted to Shopify because it's shiny and new. And like I say, the onboarding is super easy, but it's when you get a little further down the line, you find out that you have limitations. So this is a little bit of a tough one, and it's hard to know what you're going to need later. So yeah, I hope that answers that question. Any other questions?
Thanks, Liz. That was a great presentation.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up, and thank you so much for coming today. And thank you for the Board of Trade for the opportunity to share, and have a great day. Happy Friday. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. You too.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.